So I will bring those articles of impeachment. I do not know what others will do, but I know that it would be the right thing to do, not just for my congressional district, but it would be the right thing to do for my country. It would be the right thing to do for the world. Because if we allow this to continue, what will happen in Ukraine? How will the Russians perceive this? If we allow it to manifest itself, how will the China leader see it as it relates to Taiwan?
It's been one of those weeks where the global news agenda has been well and truly derailed or determined by Donald Trump. We better get used to it. First, there were the tariffs against Mexico, Canada and China, then retaliatory tariffs from China. Then there was this vision of Gaza that we didn't expect.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent in a really magnificent area that nobody would know. Nobody can look because all they see is death and destruction.
Well, Donald Trump doubled down on that message yesterday, stating that the Gaza Strip will be turned over to the United States by Israel at the conclusion of fighting, reiterating that would mean resettling Palestinians. Well, the plan prompted accusations that he's planning ethnic cleansing, drew condemnation from the UN, human rights groups and Arab leaders. Here's our Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who was clear he didn't agree with it either.
The image of thousands of Palestinians literally walking through the rubble to try to find their homes and their communities in Gaza. They must be allowed home. They must be allowed to rebuild, and we should be with them in that rebuild on the way to a two-state solution.
Now, it may feel like opposition to Donald Trump in the US has been coming not from within the United States. The Democrats looking a little unsure, or at least quite quiet, on how to approach Trump 2.0. Might that be changed by an intervention by my next guest, a Democrat congressman who's declared he's going to file impeachment proceedings? That's Congressman Al Green, a Democrat representative from the 9th District in Dallas, Texas, who's with us on the show now. Congressman, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Rosie. It's an honor to be on with you this morning. May I call you Rosie?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
You stood up in the House of Representatives this week to sort of announce your intentions. Tell us what you said.
Well, I've indicated that I will bring articles of impeachment against this president. I have done so in the past. I laid the foundation for his initial impeachment in the House of Representatives, and we plan to do it again. Not because I dislike him, but because I have great disdain for his behavior. His behavior is something that is unacceptable, especially emanating from a president of the United States of America.
Specifically, which behavior?
Well, let's start with what you called to our attention when he and Prime Minister Netanyahu on TV said to the world that they would, actually, he said that he would take over, the United States would, and Mr. Netanyahu said it was worthy of consideration. Well, here's my point on this. We had two nuclear power leaders. The United States of America has a nuclear arsenal that's probably unmatched. The Israelis have a nuclear power. They are a regional nuclear power. We are global. They can operationalize what they say. It's not that they were just talking and joking. It's not a joke when you talk about relocating people in the hundreds of thousands, million plus people. It's not a joke. And for the president to say, everybody that I've talked to likes the idea or agrees with it. Well, apparently he didn't talk to the Jordanians. They didn't agree. He didn't talk to the Egyptians. They didn't agree. The Saudis didn't agree. And he didn't talk to the Palestinians. They own the land. You cannot decide that they are just cattle to be moved from one place to another at the will of people who are external to their lives. You can't do this. And the world cannot condone this. If we condone this, we're condoning ethnic cleansing. And I plan to bring articles of impeachment against the president.
What would be the grounds for impeachment?
Standing alone right now. But sometimes it's better to stand alone than not stand at all.
I don't think you are alone in feeling, in some cases, furious about this. We've heard from the UN, we've heard from other politicians, even the UK Prime Minister, who said it wasn't going to be appropriate and it was inappropriate and in some cases breach of international law to relocate the Palestinians. I wonder, what would your grounds be for impeachment? And you've said it would be we, you and others. So far, there hasn't been sort of resounding support for this impeachment as a strategy being the way to actually have your voice of opposition heard.
Well, you're eminently correct. I'm a victim of my mother's teaching. My mother taught me to rarely use the personal pronoun I. She thought and believes, and I do too, that you rarely do things by yourself. So I will bring those articles of impeachment. I do not know what others will do, but I know that it will be the right thing to do, not just for my congressional district, but it will be the right thing to do for my country. It will be the right thing to do for the world. Because if we allow this to continue, what will happen in Ukraine? How will the Russians perceive this? If we allow it to manifest itself, how will the China leader see it as it relates to Taiwan?
But do you think trying to impeach the president, which I think you know morally you believe is the right thing to do, but don't actually believe would be successful, is that actually the most effective way to provide opposition to Donald Trump?
It is the most efficacious way to do it. And it is because the people then will have some sense of what the direction is. And the people moving in a given direction can make a difference. When I first initiated impeachment against him when he first came to power, it was said pretty much what you just said. But you lay a foundation for it. It's a bottom-up movement. I filed articles 3 times. And then after that, it became something that was acceptable for others to do. So someone has to take the lead. I don't mind being a part of the avant-garde.
So you believe you laid the groundwork to the previous impeachment of Donald Trump.
This president is unfit to hold that title, and we have to remove him.
Impeachment isn't there as sort of a lever for you to pull on whenever the president does something that you don't like.
No, it's not. And let me define, rather quickly, what is an impeachable offense. Because I've read the Federalist Papers, I studied this. But the truth is, Gerald Ford has given us the best evidence of what impeachment really is, the practical side, the de facto impeachment, not the de jure. And it is this. It is whatever Congress considers it to be at a given point in time. Whatever a majority of the Congress considers it to be at a given point in time, because it is a political question. You can't appeal it to the Supreme Court. So if 218 people conclude that the president ought to be impeached for speaking ill of Congress, they can do it. And in fact, it was done in 1868 when Andrew Johnson was impeached just for that reason, for speaking ill of Congress. So what we have to do is build the will. And what the president is doing is giving us plenty of ammunition to build the will, not ammunition in the sense that we're going to shoot someone. You have to be careful with your words. A word's dead when it says, some say, I say, it just begins to live that day.
Yeah, we must be careful there.
Yeah. Yes.
There must be frustration from people who are unhappy with the course of action that Donald Trump appears to be pursuing, and we've got to take it as credible so far because he is the president of the United States, that the Democrats are in sort of disarray, that when we need, or people, I shouldn't say when people who oppose the president's ideas want there to be a strong, credible opposition, the Democrats actually appear to be in disarray, so bruised by the apparent failure in the last election to persuade enough people to vote for you, that there's such a sort of rebuilding of the party that needs to take place that you can't really afford to be doing right now if you're going to provide credible, strong opposition to President Trump.
Well, thank you for this. There is somewhat of fear. I'm sensing in my community, I sense this coldness, this fear within the country. When you have a president who goes after the FBI successfully, when you have a president who is removing agents from the CIA, people understand that he has great power, not only in a global reach, but right in your community and to your home. So there's a lot of fear. And I can only say to everyone, you cannot be a sunshine freedom fighter. You cannot be a freedom fighter when the crowd is with you and everybody is yelling your name. No, it's the courage to stand alone that makes the difference. And on some issues, it is better to stand alone than not stand at all. So I
But,
don't
I
tell
mean,
my
do you
colleagues what
actually?
to do. If I may finish, I don't tell my colleagues what to do. What I do is try to lead by example.
It
I'm going to
sounds as
do
though,
this.
I'm
I'm
sorry,
going to
just
do
for
this.
time, it sounds, Congressman, as though you would be better off as standing as your own party and asking people to follow you if you're not going to follow suit of the Democrats, if you're suggesting actually that you've got the right way and those who have the right moral integrity will follow you. Maybe you'd be better
Well,
off not in the Democrats.
I'm a liberated Democrat, unbought, unbossed, and unafraid. Now, having said that, this is where I was when we first started the impeachment effort, when he first arrived in the presidency. These are the things that was said. That people said, well, the Senate will never convict him. True. They said that, well, you really shouldn't do this until you get the support of the Republicans. One person who was in a very powerful position said, well, he's just a jerk. Well, we persisted one time, two times, three times. And when we got to the third time, we had nearly 100 members of the Democratic caucus who were on board. At that point, it became something that the entire caucus could embrace. When they embraced it, then we impeached him. I don't do
However,
things
Donald Trump
because I
has
think they'll happen
previously
right
been
now.
impeached. He's
Say
been
again?
convicted of crimes, he's been impeached, and yet he's been elected again. So
Yes.
to what extent does impeachment as a process actually help you get what you want, which presumably is better for protections for people who live in Gaza?
Well, first you have to make people understand that he's persona non grata. And that's what impeachment does. Impeachment doesn't mean that he's going to be convicted, but it is a stain on him. It is a stain that he has to carry forever.
But
Now,
stains
that
don't
stain may
seem to
not make a
stick on
difference
President
to
Trump in the same
50%.
way.
It may not make a difference for some people right now, but as time progresses, it will, because we're seeing how he can use his immense power to create turmoil and chaos that is almost unimaginable in this country. So yes, it's not going to be easy. But I never said I was going to do it because it would be easy. I said I would do it not because it's the right thing, but because it's the righteous thing to do. Someone has to take a stand. What happened in your country, that was a stand properly taken. What happened in Egypt and the Saudis saying that there has to be a two-state solution, those are the things that people have to say. And people come around, but they first have to see if it's safe for someone else to do it. So the first person has to be willing to do what Dr. King said is neither safe nor politic nor popular.
I
You do it because it's
understand
right.
that
Yes.
the ideology you've got is that you want to do what you think is the right thing. The kind of question is whether this is the most effective way to provide opposition. Just finally, I wonder if you are frustrated. You've talked about sort of the chaos that Donald Trump can engineer, and he has done that this week. The Republicans will sort of say, and they've admitted openly in the past, this is kind of a strategy to get lots of things done very quickly. They will put out so much policy that actually you, the Democrats, can't quite keep up, or even the media, to follow all the different strands and threads of what this new administration is doing. Are you frustrated that the Democrats had opportunity under Joe Biden, then under Kamala Harris, to engineer a more persuasive argument for Americans, and actually they weren't convinced by it, and instead they said, actually, we'll take Donald Trump if that means coming with the chaos. That's the better offer.
I'd like to have more time to answer that question. So I'm going to simply say I'm frustrated, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue the fight, not in a pugilistic way, not with fisticuffs. It simply means that I think that we had opportunities that we did not properly embrace. But I want to get back to what you said about, is this the proper way to have opposition? I did not say this is the only way, my dear lady. I encourage others to do what they may, and I would join them in many of their endeavors. I believe that we have a multiplicity of ways of getting things done. I see this as one part of an important equation. Let them do what they may. I do what I must. We all do things together.
Congressman, thank you so much for your time. Congressman Al Green, the Democrat representative from the 9th District in Dallas, Texas, who is going to file impeachment proceedings. Thank you so much for explaining to us, well, exactly what's underway and what your perspective has been like